Hi, everybody. This is day 1,494 days since Richard was premeditatedly murdered on Fort Bliss after being retaliated against severely and continuously for reporting criminal trafficking and fraud. Let's see if I'm on. Let's see if everything is working. Okay, make sure. Yep, everything looks okay. All right, so this is a lot going on, a lot going on, and I'm going to be very bold today because of everything that we're hearing in the news, in the mainstream news, about the 325,000 unaccounted, unaccompanied, unaccompanied, unaccounted for minors, and the situation that was at Fort Bliss, even that Richard was reporting on, and absolutely Team Find Richard Halliday has continued that reporting, um, that exposure of what was going on. And so we, of course, were alerted to what was going on Fort Bliss when we found out about Leilani Hart's affidavit, which is a confession that was notarized by her, and we talked to the notary, and was handed in to, well, referred to the FBI, and the FBI accepted her confession, which was a lot of crimes, but of course, crimes against children, from pornography to incest to sexual assault, Um, and these were crimes against children for a long time. Okay, a pattern of crimes against children. Um, and I call it the sex cult. Um, eh, yeah. And so we were alerted to this, and we absolutely were alerted to Richard's CPS complaints by Belen Rocha right at the beginning. We knew that this was about children. When Dallas Hart, who was Richard's platoon leader, had these allegations by his own mother, and no wonder he lied to us on the phone about knowing Tavita Nusa, who was helping his mother legally or with the law enforcement, with that language, the law enforcement language, in order to coach the affidavit into being accepted. You have to have like a little certain language um, to trigger the acceptance by the FBI. And so, you know, he lost his badge. He's out of the picture. That I think that explains why the latest confession by Leilani is a crisis in lies. Not well written at all. It's a crisis in lies. It's vile and vulgar. Okay, it is. Um, because of the level of lies that's in there. But with every lie, there has to be some element of truth. If you say um, he ate 10 apples at one time that were red apples, um, you know, and then they go, no, there wasn't even 10 apples available, uh, for him to eat that. So that's not true that he ate all 10 apples, right? Um, the fact is there were apples there and they were red, and so there is this element of truth in all these lies, and you have to distinguish between what is the lie and what is the truth. And so the the confession has led to leads, and it points to many. She threw Bob Moore of El Paso Matters under the bus because it absolutely confirmed that he is, unethical. It discredited his story that obstructs justice in our son's case, by using the very prime suspect in the murder of our son, the capital murder of our son, who's facing the death penalty, which I'll get into, um, as a unreliable source. I mean, convicted criminal, right? Convicted, confirmed convicted criminal, as as an unreliable source in order to discredit a witness in our son's case. And, that is really unheard of when you really, and I'll say it again, he used a prime suspect for the murder, the capital murder of our son, as an unreliable source to discredit, to retaliate against a witness in our son's case, right? Um, that is, I'm going to have to repeat that over and over again, because it really does take a while. Thank you, Danielle, for coming on. Um, it really does take a little bit to wrap your head around that, because I don't think there's any other case like that. Have you ever seen a case like that where they take the prime suspect in the murder, um, of the victim, and use them as a source, um, uh, to discredit a witness, to retaliate against a witness? I mean, that's crazy. That is so crazy. Anyway, by the way, talking about crazy, so um, we have acquired audios of veterans that know Leilani Hart personally, that confirm that she is confessing to them that she has a mental health condition, that she's not mentally well. So I think that is also, um, because it was well known, right? It's well known. Um, and I think that that is also something that Bob Moore doesn't want to hear, because it discredits him. It makes him disgraceful. It makes him disgusting. It makes him unethical. And it makes him an obstructionist in our son's case. So that is really some little breaking news that helps us in our case against Bob Moore, um, that I wanted to share with you. Um, the other the other news is, all of these children, right? I really want to talk about the 325,000 unaccompanied minors. You know, you just who's on the side of these children? Who's taking care of these children? Who's taking care of their needs? Who's on their side? What if they get sick? Who's cleaning them up? Who's making sure they have the right food and the right drink, that they don't get dehydrated? That, all of these things that we do as mothers and grandmothers and fathers and grandfathers, um, aunts, uncles, family, right? That we do for our children. Children are a lot of work. I don't know if this daycare mentality or whatever they think, oh, you just stick a kid in daycare or something. I don't know. No, children are a lot of work. They require a lot of work. And it's a blessing to do that work because it's, the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world, right? The hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world. And I say that to my children all the time with my grandchildren. They are our treasure. And where our treasure is, we need to spend the time and our talent, and we need to do this right. And of course, um, Rob and I have a huge heart for children that don't have anybody, right? That's why we decided to adopt children. And you're there was 220 orphans in the home where we adopted Richard and Robert. And the one night that after we had adopted them and that we were in the appeals time, we couldn't leave the country for over a month. But we had to go to court to make the adoption final, and we left them in a child. Well, it was in an old residual hospital that they had turned into a resort, and they had provided child care workers to take care of these children that were going through the adoption process. And so, we had to leave for to go back to the capital, and this was up in the mountains in Kubalonka, Poland. And we had to go back to um, Gliwice, not the capital of Poland, but the city where we were adopting the boys in Gliwice, and to do the whole court thing and make it all final. And when we got back there the next day, I told Rob, I said, I'm not ever leaving them alone again. This unaccompanied minors is a terrible, terrible thing. You can't leave them alone, right? So the parents of 325,000 just said, get the hell out. I don't want to feed you anymore. I don't believe that. And I did watch, and I try to discern what is true and what is not true. And, I had a lot of friends saying, oh, you need to go to see The Sound of Freedom. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can take that. I don't know if I can take watching that. And they go, no, it's okay. It's well done. It's not vulgar, you know. So Rob and I went and we thought, okay, if we don't like it, we can always walk out, right? So we went and it was an amazing movie. And you really learned how this whole child trafficking works. And of course, they use the storage, the movable tactical move storage units. They use those storage units for, the shipping. Um, and in Richard's case, they have access to these storage units, and somehow, some way, we believe his remains were in a tactical move storage unit. that's probably some new information out there, but we believe that that was like a hiding place in order to figure out how to do the rest, whatever they were going to do to him. Um, and, so they had access. Of course, the military has access. They use these tactical move storage units all the time. And of course, they were over the border. They use them to be up to no good. A criminal in the system could absolutely use that. And we have gotten more confirmation that uh, there are people in Richard's chain of command that were really up to no good, that were part of the rogue criminal group from the original response team and more. There's more individuals in this group, and that it kind of goes along with this, uh, the truths of this movie, right? That the children don't just get kicked out by their parents and are made orphans that way, right? That there is manipulations going on, that there is uh, lies to the parents, and all of a sudden their child is taken from them. That they're very clever in their schemes, and it's surrounded. It's all about lies, right? So if you are constantly lying, like Leilani Hart. Leilani Hart, it's not hard to believe that she would be involved in something like this. Um, and of course, she's the prime suspect in the murder of Richard. So, because the lies are just scammer, professional scammer level. And the same thing with Danae Katzen. And she's a proven scammer level liar. And the same thing with Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, her relative, right? Their relatives is Bliss Avenue thing. And of course, I want to say Lydia Ortega Rocha, you know, the level of her lies to me. Um, and it goes on and on. The lies are just proof that um, this is a culture or a little group that's built on lies, and that they're always lying, and they're scammers. They're scammers. You know, and the same thing with Dallas Hart. He lied, right? He lied to us. And of course, James Hart, right? And, so are they, Belen Rocha, are they Jay Pollan, and another one that is in the chain of command that has now been through the CID investigation into Richard, has now been called out also as a liar to federal agents, to the FBI, and that is Michael Ruggiero. Michael Ruggiero, and that's not us saying it. It's really Hema, his wife. His wife that has been harassing us and everything, threw her own husband under the bus, according to the CID file, that Michael Ruggiero lied to the FBI. And what did he lie about? That he was leaking confidential information from Richard's file to Hema, to his wife, in order to use it to create a false narrative. Um, you know, a false narrative surrounding Richard's case, right? And against Richard. This whole smear campaign, this whole false narrative. And so the CID report really calls him out as lying to law enforcement and, leaking this confidential information from Richard's case. And, she's been, well, both of them have been part of this rogue criminal group with Leilani Hart, with Bob Moore, with Dallas Hart, right, with Jules Tuganon Chan, who is directly connected to the emergency intake center, these 325,000 unaccounted for minor news stories that we have. That's coming from El Paso, not only from El Paso, but for the most part, for the largest part of it, it's coming from El Paso. El Paso is really the the place that uh, this child trafficking was really going on and is going on. And we have confirmation that I mentioned months ago about the veterans that were getting jobs to for security for the emergency intake center, um, saying that they all they could do was walk the perimeter. They were not allowed to look in the buildings. They really felt like this was uh, uh, child abuse to the nth degree, pedophiles or whatever. Um, it was, you know, those are veterans saying that. That's not me. And those were the security guards that got those jobs, saying that, not me. Okay. And of course, we have a director of emergency services saying that it was really, really bad. It was so bad. Okay. And we have Richard saying it's so bad. I mean, you have the DES Thomas Kane not being able to verbalize what was going on there when it came to the sexual abuse, the, you know, for work. And we know that there's a problem because of the 14-year-old girl living on post being the stepdaughter of one of his guards, right? One of his security guards. So it was really, really bad. If I was Jules Tugnan Chan, I wouldn't put it on my CV, but you know, he needs to thank us. He needs to thank us because as soon as we called him out, as soon as we found out that he was part of, you know, the registered agent for the forfeited El Paso, the Fit Fam El Paso LLC, he wiped that CV off of that LinkedIn. He wiped his LinkedIn, and you know, so I think he should thank us for, you know, saving him any more embarrassment for saying that he's directly connected to what happened at the emergency intake center. Um, and and I'm going to be very bold. Uh, what Trump is saying right now, bringing that out, 325,000 unaccompanied minors that he said, they're mostly all dead. They're mostly all dead. You know, children, uh, they need to be accompanied. They can't be unaccompanied. They need to be accompanied. So, we, because of Hawley, Senator Hawley coming out and talking about it, because of news coming out and talking about it, because of President Trump coming out and talking about it, I want to claim for Team Farm Richard Halliday um, a huge influence from our work that we've been doing that has contributed to that because they have to be driven to talk about it. They're not going to talk about it unless they're driven. And I think we've driven them to do it. And maybe some other people too. But I don't know who they are. But I think that we've had a huge hand because it hasn't just been about us talking about it on our live streams. It's been about putting it in writing and turning it in to multiple agencies. So, and what does this mean? This means this is building the argument, I shouldn't say argument, meeting the thresholds. I think that's the best way to say this. Meeting the thresholds for the death penalty in the premeditated capital murder case of our son, Richard Halliday. Okay, we are absolutely laying down the foundation of meeting the threshold for the premeditated capital murder case of our son, Richard Halliday. And there are certain thresholds that you have to meet. And if there is a crime going on, which there is with all of this criminal trafficking and fraud, um, if the crime is used to cover up a crime, that's one of the, and I have a list here, and I was going to print it out. Let me see if I can pull it up because I think it's very important. Yeah, here it is. Oh, there's so much. Um, oh my gosh. There's so much evidence here, y'all, for meeting the threshold of the lethal injection, the death penalty in Texas. Okay. Premeditated, covering up a crime with the murder, right? Richard being a whistleblower, and reporting the criminal trafficking and those that are involved in the murder of Richard being part of that criminal trafficking and murdering to cover up the criminal activity. Um, that is that's huge. So I think being a police officer or being in service. Well, Richard was a soldier, so that is another threshold for the death penalty. Um, and I'm going to work that out really good and give it to you. We've just gotten this new news about the district attorney Bill Hicks that I wanted to share with you too. And it's they need to lock them up and then question like they do with civilians. I'm sure this would lead to exactly where Richards remains, in my opinion, and the leader put on death row. Just my opinion. Well, yeah. Well, that's what I'm trying to say tonight to like Michael Ruggiero, like Hema Xochitl, like Leilani Hart, like Thomas Kane, these that and others, there is a huge security risk. And Michael Ruggiero, who absolutely has no esprit de corps. My father said it was a really big problem. He talked at length with Richard about this, about the guidon, since Richard was the guidon, and talked to him about Michael Ruggiero and what a failed leader he is, and he um, is working still. Even though he's separated from the army, he's working for a security agency, and I think they're at risk. We think they're at risk. Team Fire Richard Halliday thinks they're at risk because he he lied to FBI. See, and he's involved in Richard's case. And they absolutely have to be alerted because he's part of the um, THAAD instructors. And what is THAAD? THAAD are these intercept missiles. So this is, like right before the total annihilation, during a war. I mean, they're the defense. They're the defense against any kind of attack. And, he is a security risk and on so many levels. And so is his wife. Because see, if they have no esprit de corps and they have no loyalty to the country, no loyalty to uh, to his soldiers that he had an obligation to care for. And people don't remember this, but Director Ford, the new director of the CID, he's a civilian. Um, in our report from him, he said that the search for Richard did not begin until September 1st, 2020. And I'll repeat that. In an official report by Director Ford, right, the CID new director, um, Richard's search, the search for Richard, did not begin until September 1st. So that means that Richard being murdered, and he was never missing, but his remains were his remains. And so, because his remains, you can't just hurt yourself and then get rid of your own remains. You can't do that. And then, of course, the place where he was killed, where he was murdered, capital murder, premeditated capital murder. I'll just start that. The place of his death was on Fort Bliss. So this is from the reports. This is, of course, from us, but we don't have as, I mean, we gave them a lot. We have so much, but this is what they determined, that Richard was put to death on Fort Bliss. That's murder. And we have enough information to say this is a premeditated murder. And then we have enough information because of everything we've been through. Can you imagine the first sergeant and his wife for 4 years plotting and scheming and impersonating and harassing and threatening and tampering with the file, tampering with witnesses, obstructing justice in the case of Ruggiero's own soldier, who they maintain, a false narrative about that is absolutely absurd and does not fit at all with their own actions. They're facing the death penalty, y'all. They are facing the death penalty. And before, and so we're saying that, but I want to say this is a security threat. It's not just about Richard. Of course, it's about the 325,000, not 10,000, not 50,000, not 100,000, not 200,000. We're talking 325,000 unaccompanied minors. Absolutely, they were taken. Absolutely. Taken, like in that movie. And most of them, according to President Trump, are dead. And he wouldn't say that unless he knew it. And El Paso is center of all of that. Of all of that. And it has to do with the sex cults. And for Ruggiero to, it seems to me that he's protecting that kind of business. because Richard absolutely was calling it out. And Richard was murdered for it. Absolutely. There's not, once you look at, and of course, Ruggiero knew, and yet the search did not even start until September 1st. I think that speaks volumes. Speaks volumes. So, with Leilani Hart, with Dallas Hart, with James Hart, with and so we alerted DeAndre Singleton, who is the boss of Michael, uh, and I think we owe him another message um, of Michael Ruggiero, because if you're uh, trying to teach Thad missiles all about taking care of them and everything like that, and you're so ready to do this kind of crime, and if you're so ready to sell everything out, you have no esprit de corps, and money's the most important, and you're willing to participate um, in what I believe uh, Ruggiero's participating, because there's no other explanation for the for the years of activity that he has done. Um, if he's willing to do that, what else is he willing to do? He's a security threat. He cannot go near those missiles. He cannot go near our soldiers. No way. So, this is, and maybe he wanted to get that position, and I don't think that he told the truth. I don't think he told the contractor, the security contractor, that he's part of, the first sergeant of Richard Halliday, that that he lied to FBI. I don't think he told them that. That's what's written in the CID report, that he lied to FBI. So they're absolutely in big trouble. And I think, what about the remains at Dover of many unidentified soldiers, I believe, in mass grave, from an article I read a while ago? Yes, and this is the thing. Um, when are they going to give us Richard's remains? Is it at Dover? Is it in El Paso? When are they going to give us Richard's remains? Have they used the chemical acid on it? Have they incinerated it? I mean, look, I heard that they already incinerated to ash Crooks. Crooks, the young man that met his demise by attempting to shoot President Trump. They've already incentivized, you don't do that when you're doing an ongoing investigation. No, that is covering up evidence. And if you're Dallas Hart, if you're the first sergeant of Richard, First Sergeant Ruggiero, then you have access to Richard's barracks. You can clean up any of it. You can go through it with any and and get rid of any kind of evidence that's there. So that that is huge news. And oh, I wanted to tell you about the district attorney, that Bill Hicks has. We were told. Okay, so this is third party, I guess. We were told that he has relinquished all his power or his duties as district attorney. That's what we were told. So what we have done, I think, has really relinquished the authority of the office. That is what we were told. Um, that Bill Hicks has relinquished the authority, his authority of the office. And so the question is, who's prosecuting then, right? Who's prosecuting? So let me make sure I did say we're alerting the security contractor because this is a huge thing. If you don't have trusted employees, what are they up to? And if they have no integrity, what are you up to? Um, so that is really. Uh, I'm just looking through my notes to make sure. Oh yeah, that the veterans that got the job at the emergency intake center just were walking the perimeter. They couldn't look at through any windows or anything like that. They couldn't look. That's just crazy for a security guard to say, "Don't look, don't look, security guard, don't look." That's crazy. And so, does Richard's case, premeditated capital murder, covering up for criminal trafficking and fraud by a soldier, I think it meets the requirements. So thank you, everyone. God bless you. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Please share this information. And thank you so much. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Anicia. Thank you for your prayers and your love. I thought he didn't have authority. Well, he doesn't. Okay, so let me explain this. Um, Bill Hicks is a usurper. He pretended to have authority, and by doing that, because he had no legitimate authority, but a coup, a usurper authority, all the cases that he touched are botched, absolutely botched. And yet he was continuing to fake it. And in this case, you can't fake it till you make it, because he didn't meet the requirements of the Texas Constitution. But there are those, for their reasons, for their connections, that were propping up Bill Hicks in the district attorney's office. And now, so he could kind of fake it a little bit amongst his friends, but nobody else bought it. If they were paying attention, nobody else bought it, what he was doing. And so now, they're saying, oh, he's relinquished the authority of the office. So it's because he never had. Who would do that, right? Who would just relinquish the authority? Well, someone that never had the authority. He never had the authority in the first place. So I think that's really important. And, just pray that that cracks and we get Yvonne Rosales back in there to continue what she started in our son's case and in the Walmart case and in other cases. So thank you so much. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.